Here's when and how and why to pot up your tomatoes, and I've got 96 of them, so let's get started. The first thing I look at are the roots, and if I see a bunch of them coming out the bottom and the sides, then I know it's ready to pot up. When leaves go from a deep green to a light yellow green, that's also a sign that they're running out of nutrients. If you feel like your seedlings have stopped growing, they might be stunted, and it's another great reason to pot them up. You pot up tomatoes because every time you bury the stem, new roots develop, making for a more robust seedling. I like to start by tapping the trays to loosen the roots up. Then I push with my finger in the bottom while pulling up from the stem. Here I'm going from a 3 to a 4-inch cell, so I'm just going to drop it in to the very bottom. Give it a quick tap to ensure that the soil is at the base, allowing water to wick up as you bottom water. Potting up also gives you the chance to sneak in some fertilizer and a little bit of worm castings to give these tomatoes that last boost they need before they go in the ground. Not only will we get new roots, but that extra soil is going to give me a couple extra weeks to figure out where the heck I'm going to put all these.
When you're planting your tomatoes, lay them down. Pinch off. Pinch off all the leaves up. Cover it over all the way down. It'll root all the way down here and you'll have a monstrous tomato.
Tomato plant care. Remove any leaves that touch the ground to prevent disease or fungus from spreading from soil. See the main stem. You want to keep true branches, but remove suckers growing from the shoulders. Pinch and carefully snap off or use clean clippers. There's another one. And another. And another. Who's the sucker now? Tie up your tomato plant to support it as it bears fruit. Use ties that are softer than your plant stem. Follow to learn more tips to help your plant grow healthy.
Instead of growing flowers, grass, or succulents at home, try planting a pot of sweet and tangy dwarf tomatoes. They don't take up much space, and you can grow them in small pots on your balcony or in your courtyard. They serve both as ornamental plants and delicious vegetables for consumption. With a few tomato plants on your balcony, you can enjoy fresh tomatoes all year round. The best part is, it's easy to grow them, no need for support structures or pollination. Even if you're a beginner gardener, you can still cultivate them. For more details, please check out our bio.
Here's your gardening tip of the day. When you buy a tomato plant that's gotten really tall, and they often do this time of year in the greenhouse because it's so warm in here, we have to water them all the time to keep them looking healthy, but then they stretch like crazy. And it's fine, it's just that they get kind of tall and a little bit skinny looking. So the secret is when you get a tall tomato plant that you need to bury most of the plant in the ground. So if you're planting it in a container, you're going to want to put it in the very bottom of the container and fill the rest with soil. If you're putting it in a garden, what we suggest you do is you dig a trough, you lay it on its side, and you cover the whole plant with soil as much as you can to about here. Like honestly, 3/4 of the plant I would cover up with soil. And the reason you're going to do this is you'll notice on the base of this stem that there's all kinds of fine little hairs. And what those will become if you cover them with soil is roots. And it makes a much stronger tomato plant. It doesn't flop around in the wind. It's just going to give you much more of a plant, like a root base, in order to feed your plant, and you'll have a much better, robust tomato crop.
Here's one way to properly plant a tomato. This is a 1-gallon pot that I'm planting in a 17-inch deep bed. And tomatoes grow roots all the way up their stems, so the further you can bury your tomato plant, the more room it has for roots to send out, and the bigger the root system, the more it can be supported. I'm adding some bone meal to the bottom of the planting hole and an all-purpose tomato fertilizer. Usually the 3 numbers on the front of any granular fertilizer that works well for this are going to be either 456, 566, 656, all around equal numbers. And I'm burying this tomato plant pretty far down. I'm going to remove the bottom leaves so that they don't get soil splashed back up on them to avoid diseases. I always plant a dwarf type of French marigold and some nice beautiful basil next to any of my tomato plants because they actually help deter pests. And as you can see, I've removed even more of those lower leaves so nothing is touching the soil, and I've scraped the straw mulch.
Don't plant your tomatoes on their own. Instead, let them hang out with one of these 3 plants, and they'll thank you with better harvests.
Thank you, Tomato Daddy.
First, we have a plant that produces a ton of small flowers, which provide nectar to a ton of awesome bugs. And those bugs lay eggs in tomato-eating caterpillars. And that plant is dill. This next plant doesn't make much sense until you realize it grows mostly underground and puts out a ton of bushy foliage, which prevents the dreaded soil splash, meaning any disease prevalent in the soil can't get to the plant. That plant is a sweet potato. This next one is almost as popular as tomatoes themselves. They help suppress weeds, also exude chemicals that keep weeds from sprouting. And you should transplant at the same time you put in your tomato. And that plant, of course, is the cucumber. And that's why
90 days is all it takes to go from plant killer to plant nurturer. Very sniffable. Well, listen, cherry tomatoes are one of the easiest and fastest plants to grow. I've been planting these things for 3 years, so along the way, I learned a few hacks that could really help you. First of all, if you plant a tomato in soil, you'll get more tomatoes in 90 days. Second of all, if you don't want those hornworms coming and chewing on your plant, there's something called companion plants, so you can plant marigolds, garlic, or basil in your tomatoes, and they'll thrive a lot better. Now, once your plant grows a little bit, you can plant it on its side in your soil, and the little roots on that stem will grow more tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes are actually self-pollinating,
so you don't need the bees.
But it really is a beautiful process to watch your own fruit grow and harvest the fruit of your labor. So if you want to go from plant killer to plant nurturer, now's the time. Go get cherry tomatoes and plant them, and don't forget to
Follow me.
Follow this weird trick to grow thousands of tomatoes this year. First, we're gonna dig a really deep hole. Next, we're gonna crack an egg into it and smash up the shell. Yum. Then we're gonna get our tomato plant, and you're gonna break off all of the bottom branches and bury it very deep down into the hole. All of these little hairs will become roots, so this will have a very strong root system. Just use this trick to grow thousands of tomatoes this year. We're gonna dig our hole nice and deep. Next, we're gonna take our egg. We're gonna crack it right into the hole. Shell and all, and kind of break that up. Then with our tomato, we're gonna go ahead and pop off these lower leaves and bury it nice and deep. If you see all those little hairs all along the tomato plant, those will all become roots, which is why we like to bury these deep. Just gentle as you're taking it out of its pot. And then in it goes, the dirt in around it. And that's all you gotta do to grow lots of tomatoes this year. See you next time.